Corey Gaudreau against Ross Merriam is what we're going to watch. Sultai Reanimator, the deck that Ross actually used to win Connecticut States with, is what he'll be playing against Obzai Control. So we're probably in for a bit of a lengthy one here.
Yeah, Corey's list, a lot of removal, a couple Planeswalkers, Tasigur, Siege Rhino, and Courser just as creatures. Pretty typical list here. 2 copies of Utter End. That's a lot of copies of Utter End, but otherwise a pretty straightforward list.
Full price.
Full retail.
Full retail, excuse me. Both players going to start from the Llanowar Waste here. How about 3 Llanowar Waste to begin things? Why not in round number 3 here from Providence? A Forest and a Caryatid. Merriam will pass the turn over to Corey. It's a Windswept Heath and a passing of the turn. So Merriam with a little bit of acceleration here. Now it's Courser of Crewfix. We'll take a look at that top card. Assuming this does resolve, which it will. Thoughtseize is what we will see. There is a Pluto Delta. Trigger the Courser. Up to 21 is Ross. And we're going to head back Gaudreau's way. Gaudreau going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath. He'll go down to 19. A Plains or a Forest on the way. And it will be a Plains.
And a card to look out for in this matchup, Corey does have a main deck copy of Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Sultai Reanimator plays so much to the board and is on the slower side of things that the Ugin shows up. Ross can go from a winning position to out of the game in very short notice.
There's a copy of Abzan Charm. A painful one at that. 2 cards coming here for Gaudreau.
Ross also with a Dragon Lord Atarka in his list.
Oh, a little splishy splash.
Yep, he's got a Frontier Bivouac and a Mana Confluence to cast it. He has Sylvan Caryatid, and he can also just whip a Erebos it back.
That's pretty adorable. Not too hard to actually cast in this deck. There's a copy of Tasigur. Pass the turn back. Thoughtseize the draw. Opulent Palace on top of the deck. Opulent Palace will now enter the battlefield. Courser will allow Ross to gain a life. And there is the Frontier Bivouac.
A giveaway that something's up.
Might be a little innocuous, honestly. Who knows?
Well, there's no way that a random Frontier Bivouac is just showing up in someone's list. So
this is true. Take a look at a couple cards here. From the Satyr Wayfinder, Bivouac will join the hand. Temple of Malady on top of the deck. You saw Sidisi get milled. Now, this was actually, oddly enough, a bit of a giveaway. Maybe. Gaudreau reading the Sidisi. Maybe that implies he doesn't have any in his deck.
It would be odd otherwise.
Yeah. Something that Merriam is smart enough to maybe pick up on, by the way, if your opponent is reading that card. And taking a look at Gaudreau's deck list, he does not have Sidisi here. He has 4 Coursers, 4 Siege Rhinos, and 2 Tassigurs, and then actually a nice Planeswalker suite and 3 Elspeths, and Ugin, and the Liliana Vest.
Although we have seen Sidisi incorporated into some Abzan control lists, most notably Jacob Wilson's winning deck full list for the Invitational.
Absolutely.
Satyr Wayfinder showing up in that list to facilitate it. Elspeth tokens were very prevalently involved.
Here's a Thoughtseize from Merriam. A Tasigur, a Bile Blight, and just a couple of lands there. Windswept Heath, a Forest, and a Temple of Malady.
I'd imagine Ross does not really care very much about Bile Blight in this kind of matchup, so even though there's already Tasigur in play, I think Tasigur the likely selection.
See Ross going to turn over his top card there from Coursers. It should be turned over. It's a copy of Manic Influence. It can certainly influence his decision with the Thoughtseize. But I'm with you. I'd be surprised if he selects Bile Blight. Seems like Tasigur would be the best choice. Seems like Tasigur will be the choice. And it looks like Ross even has a copy of Murderous Cut now, too. So able to clear the Tasigur off the table. And now for Gaudreau, he's got nothing going.
Yeah, just a Bile Blight. Very good turn there for Ross. A lot of leftovers. His clock's slow, but he is way ahead at this point.
Courser even gets to come in for 2 points of damage. Gaudreau down to 13. The draw here. That's a pretty good one there in Siege Rhino. Gonna start with the Temple. Take a look at the top card. Leave that on top pretty quickly, will Corey. I'll take a little bit of damage against Siege Rhino, but at least that's something.
Yep. This is one of the matchups where Siege Rhino is not a high-impact card because the matchup's not really about attacking or blocking so much as it is about overpowering people. That said, at this stage, it's one of Corey's better draws.
Manic Influence to draw there from Merriam. Thoughtseize on top of the deck. Ross will play the Manic Influence. He'll trigger. Gain some life. Here's a bunch of mana. And there is Dragonlord Slumgar. This belongs to Ross Merriam now.
Not shabby. Not a shabby turn.
Not at all. Into the red zone comes Merriam with his Courser and Satyr Wayfinder. So now Gaudreau needs to find a removal spell to get that Dragonlord off of the table. Now, don't forget, he did keep his top card on top with the Scry from Temple of Malady. So hopefully it's a helpful one for him in this situation. It's an Obzon Charm.
I was about to say, it's unlikely that he kept something like Hero's Downfall on the top because he needed to find something proactive. But Obzon Charm makes a lot of sense that he would have left it on top because it is shaping up to be the type of game where drawing 2 cards looks good. And in here, it's not bad to just gas up a little bit.
I thought he might use the removal spell mode of that to get the Dragonlord off of the table.
So I actually like this play a lot from Corey.
Okay.
Because the game is shaping up to be one where I don't think he can win by trading 1-for-1. Ross is just too far ahead in card advantage and so forth. So if I'm in Corey's spot, I just sort of want to race to End Hostilities or Ugin or something of the sort.
Yeah, there is one copy of End Hostilities here and then one copy of Ugin to draw to. So that does make a little bit of sense. Yeah, if you don't think that you can win the 1-for-1 game, which is arguable that he can, or it's arguable that he can't, I can see where you're coming from with that.
Ross's hand might be all lands, and maybe you can still win a conventional game, but I just don't think that's really the case.
Ross is going to send in with everybody. I mean, there's some blocking to be done here.
Also, it gives him the max greed play where you Obzon Charm into a removal spell, and then you get the best of both worlds.
Sure.
I think Corey need to make a greedy play that turn to try to catch up, even though it looks weird.
Thought he was going to take Bioblight. The thing that's tough here for Corey, and we already know the top card of his deck is the Temple of Malady, is that he's sitting at 1 life. So I don't think there's any way out of this situation because we know that he's drawing a land. You see the top card, it's got to be Hero's Downfall. Merriam knows all the cards in his hand are lands, so I think he's on a no-for in this situation.
Yeah, he can go up to 2, he can chump block something, but he can't survive.
Ross Merriam going to win game number 1 here against Corey Gaudreau. Sultai Reanimator up a game over Obzon Controls. Take a look at the sideboards here, and we will start with Corey. His build a little more controlling, not very mid-range-esque. You're not going to find Sylvan Caryatid or Satyr Wayfinder. You will find 2 Duress and Erase, 2 Farika's Cure, a Bioblight, 3 Drown of Sorrow, a Foul Tongue Invocation, 2 Read the Bones, 2 Nissa World Waker, and an End Hostilities in the sideboard.
So I kind of want to just go bigger and more powerful in this kind of matchup, a lot of card advantage, so I like the copies of Read the Bones. I think the Duresses are okay, even though Ross's deck is a little light on spells. He's probably boarding into more of them, and the spells he does have are very significant in the games. I think the End Hostility and the 2 copies of Nissa can also come in as well.
What do we see on Merriam's side?
3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, a Treasure Cruise, a Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Ultimate Price, 2 Drowned Sorrows, a Doomweight Giant, a Soul of Innistrad, a Reclamation Sage, a Hornet Queen, a Farika God of Affliction, and a Merciless Executioner. I think you just want the stuff for attrition-style games. I think the Farika come in. Reclamation Sage is not horrible in this matchup because, of course, her crew fix, though it's a little low impact. I like the Soul of Innistrad, I like the Thoughtseize, the Treasure Cruise, and I especially like 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke. Very good against a deck like Obstinate Control, where most of the significant stuff is 4 mana or more.
Fair enough. Both players will go to the drawing board here, and we will talk about the Star City Games Spring Sale. While they do, new items added every day at 11 a.m. until the end of the month.
Yeah, and it gets updated every day at 11 a.m. as you mentioned, Eastern Time, so it's worth checking out every single day. A lot of very good deals on a variety of items, cards, sealed products, and so forth. I actually made a purchase myself a few days ago for an item that was on sale.
Very nice.
So there's some good deals going on. You should check it out.
I know there was a land sale one of those days, and I'm a land guy.
That's the sale I capitalized on.
Very nice. Very smart.
Used some of my store credit, got some foil flooded strands.
Ugh.
They just get buried in the box. I'm not doing anything with them. They're just buried.
Okay. This is different from the red box.
Right. There's just a box of possessions that I'm going to be buried with of some value, and the flooded strands go into that box.
And if times get tough, you can ship them out.
Exactly.
Boom.
Basically, my plan is to use whatever money I have left over when I die to build a booby-trapped tomb with a treasure box, and anyone who gets to it gets to keep it. So the flooded strands are going into that.
Ooh, this sounds like a fun game.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of planning already done for this.
So is this going to be more of a game show?
I don't think you're allowed to videotape it, but whatever. Head over to the website every day. 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. New sales going on. Some good deals there on a variety of products, individual cards. You know the website, StarCityGames.com.
It's like When Ben Stein's Money, except for it's When Patrick Sullivan's foil flooded strands.
In a booby-trapped tomb.
Sort of. In a booby-trapped tomb. It's like, have you seen the show Legend of the Hidden Temple?
I don't believe so.
Well, first of all, you're missing out on one of life's greatest television shows.
Okay.
A Nickelodeon classic.
Okay.
But this seems like this would be kind of your show.
Sure.
It's just it's a kid show, very Double Dare-esque. This leads me to believe that you haven't seen very many Nickelodeon game shows.
I saw the one where it's basically like a mousetrap one where there's a bunch of green slime and...
That's Guts,
Yeah, that
I
sounds
believe.
right.
Yeah, Do You Have It?
Yeah, that sounds right. I have seen that one.
A great show. There was a Wild and Crazy Kids,
Yep.
Double Dare. I think Double Dare is the show that we're thinking of. I don't think it's Guts.
It's a long time ago, but that's the only Nickelodeon program that I really recall.
Okay. I think the slime you're talking about, I believe, is called Gak.
Yep. I did not watch a lot of Nickelodeon as a child.
Yeah, I know you were too busy reading The Economist and drinking coffee at a young age.
Pretty joyless
Yes.
as a child.
Instead of being young and enjoying things.
I enjoyed certain things. I played a lot of sports, like the outdoors.
Why would you do that when you can just watch Nickelodeon?
Yeah, that
Salute
didn't do
your
it.
shorts?
That didn't do
Hey,
it for me.
dude. There were a lot of bad shows to watch as a kid, and you missed out on all of them.
When a bunch of my cousins were over my house when I was young, 5 or 6 years old, and everyone was hanging out in my sister's room. I had an older sister, 2 years older than me. And I walk in, and there's my sister and my brother, and 4 or 5 of my cousins. And my sister goes, "We're playing make believe. Do you want to play?" And I go, "Why would I want to do that?" At age 5, that was the first indicator that my parents had that there was something a little off about their child.
Yeah. Do you want to play make-believe?
Why would I want to do that?
No? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No thanks.
I'd rather do anything else.
Yeah. I'd rather just sit in my room and think about things, if you don't mind.
You were the fun police.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Oh, yeah.
Game number 2 here between Ross Merriam and Corey Gaudreau will be underway here in just a moment. If you guys are joining us, we appreciate having you. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, the SCG Live crew. We are here in Providence at SCG Live, hashtag SCGPROV for your tweets. If you want to tell Patrick about how he should watch Nickelodeon television shows and actually enjoy things, feel free to use that hashtag.
I just enjoy different things. It's not that I don't enjoy things, just what I enjoy is different.
We all know that now. Looks like Corey's going to take a mulligan here. Ross looks to be happy with his 7.
So we're at the Providence Convention Center, as we're at the city's main convention center.
Yep.
We're often sharing the hall with other events.
Correct.
We don't have it to ourselves. So like it feels like once every 3 or 4 times we do a show, we are sharing the convention center with a dance competition.
True.
And the bass line is just pumping through the building right now.
It is really thumping. There are some really nice pop songs being played that I've got I can really listen, I can just feel it all the way through. It really makes me happy. We've got someone here from American Idol, Adam Azagalian. Mm-hmm. So perhaps he goes over there, can sing a song.
For me, it gives me a sense that the room is collapsing.
That's not the case.
No, I'm just saying what the feel of it is.
I believe that the convention center is sturdy enough that they'll be okay. I don't know much about architecture, but I think we'll be all right.
I would hope so. It'd be a really disappointing way to go out.
Well, between that or which way, between that or perhaps the truck full of bees that tipped over.
The truck full of bees is worse.
Yeah. Okay.
Truck full of bees is way worse.
That should just sounds like a made-up story.
Right.
That happened.
I saw the headline and just assumed that it was made up, so I didn't click on it. But I guess it was a real thing.
Oh, it's real. See if Gaudreau can find a better 6 cards here. Doesn't look like he's thrilled at what he's looking at. But he's going to keep it. He gets to play first. It's the Sandstorm Citadel. We are underway here in game number 2. Temple of Malady here from Merriam. Take a look at that top card. It'll become the bottom card as we head back Corey's way.
So Corey's plan in the post-board games is sort of just to lean on his 2-for-1s like Obzon Charm and Read the Bones to break up what Ross is doing and overpower him with just generically better 1-for-1 cards like Elspeth, Ugin, and Hostilities. When Ross is able to get all of his interlocking pieces into play, his deck's far more powerful. So
Well, Ross does not have a second land to play.
This is also a path to victory for Corey, is Ross just dying with 1 land in play.
Of course, sir. Take a look at that top card. It's a Tassiger. it leads me to believe that Ross has kept a hand that has Sylvan Caryatid or Satyr Wayfinder or something.
I should hope so.
Yeah, and has not drawn anything. And that Thoughtseize will probably let us find out here a turn from now.
Corey might just be busy casting stuff. I mean, Thoughtseizing an opponent who's discarding a hand size anyway isn't really that potent. So if I'm Corey, yeah, I don't mind shuffling away this Thoughtseize. Just find stuff to do while Ross is stumbling on his mana.
Well, Corey does sacrifice the fetch land, so he will be shuffling away the Thoughtseize. Looks like he's going to go with a Plains, and he will.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Going to stay net neutral at life.
I just have one quick announcement. If anybody is here with the party of Roth Sonia, is anybody here with Roth Sonia?
So we'll see what's going to come now. Like a card like a Siege Rhino could just put a close in this game right now.
Exactly. And that's why I like shuffling away the Thoughtseize, because if Corey could just do this stuff, it doesn't matter if Ross is able to untap, find a land, and start developing his mana a little bit.
This also forces Ross to find a land right now, or this game is probably over. Now Ross did find a land in Polluted Delta. And it's important, I think, too, for Ross that that land actually enters the battlefield untapped.
Yeah, because if he draws another Temple here or an Opulent Palace, he's taking 5. If Corey has any sort of follow-up, that's just it.
Yeah.
If Ross has a Caryatid, there's still some hope. I mean, the discarding has made a potential Murderous Cut a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, the Satyr Wayfinder will help that as well. So we'll take a look at some cards here. Whip of Erebos, Soul of Innistrad, Frontier Bivouac, Polluted Delta. He might be forced into taking the Delta here. Bivouac might be too slow.
Yeah, if he's got a Murderous Cut in his hand or a Caryatid, it becomes an argument for maybe taking the Bivouac. But I agree with you. In general, it looks like Ross is going to have a lot of pressure on him to just play mana untapped as much as possible, because he's quite a bit behind right now.
You mentioned the Bivouac. That allows him to cast Dragonlord Atarka, which that's not going to play a role in this game most likely. But I do like the fact that the Bivouac does really, it just seems like maybe he needs a 5th blue-green land.
Yes.
It doesn't really scream, oh, he's splashing red for something too. What do we have here? We have ourselves a Thoughtseize. Let's see exactly what Merriam is working with. There's a Freak, a God of Affliction, a Murderous Cut, a Hero's Downfall, Disdainful Stroke, Whip of Erebos, of course, your Crucifix, and of course that Polluted Delta. You mentioned Murderous Cut, and that might be the take here.
I think it is. It's just the most efficient thing going on. And Ross is behind. He needs to cast removal next turn. If he has to cast Hero's Downfall, that's his entire turn. Also means he has to sacrifice the Delta to get a swamp, which is maybe something he doesn't want to do. So
we'll see what Gaudreau wants to select here in just a moment. You see his hand. He's got a Tasker and Abzan Charm over there. He's going to consult that hand one more time. Make sure he's making the right decision here. And it looks like he will select the Murderous Cut, taking the most efficient card available. It's time to attack. See if Merriam has any interest in chump blocking that Courser of Crucifix. That's chump blocking. Siege Rhino's not really going to get a lot done.
yeah, the question now is, basically the decision is, do you hope to be able to chump block something better, or are you worried about Corey removing the Wayfinder somewhere down the line and not allowing you to block at all?
Temple of Silence. Siege Rhino's on top of the deck. Siege Rhino is staying on top of the deck.
Yeah, I like keeping Siege Rhino there.
Good choice. Force the draw here for Ross.
It's another untapped mana. I suspect that the Siege Rhino on top of Corey's deck is going to be a little bit too much to overcome here. But Ross was kind of shaping up to be able to start to come back a little bit here.
Potentially. That Thoughtseize was big on Gaudreau's side, of course. And because, if there's no Thoughtseize there, and Thoughtseize could be something else, for example, but, if there's no Thoughtseize there, Ross would actually have the turn of Murderous Cut and then leave up Disdainful Stroke.
Yep.
That's off the table now. And he might have to leave up Disdainful Stroke still because he can't beat a Siege Rhino.
So, yeah, this puts Ross in a position where he chump blocks, Disdainful Stroke something, and then if Corey doesn't play the Siege Rhino, then he can downfall at the end of the turn.
Abzan Charm's going to be cast. It feels like it's going to be the draw 2 mode. So there's Siege Rhino. There is Llanowar Waste. We'll see the top card of the deck, which is another copy of Abzan Charm. Gaudreau will draw that Abzan Charm for his turn. We'll see the top card of his deck here in just a second, which is another copy, of course, of Crufix. There's the attack. There's the chump block. 4 damage will come across. Merriam's going to go down to 4. Corey going to try to cast this Siege Rhino into the Disdainful Stroke that he knows about. And I actually don't love that play that turn. I think he's probably better served just casting Courser.
Yeah, especially with the Abzan Charm left over in hand. This feels like the kind of spot where you know what Ross's hand is, you know what his play is for this turn.
You also know that Ross has a copy of Hero's Downfall in hand. So, you know, next turn, he's going to sacrifice his Pluto Delta, go down to 3, Hero's Downfall the Rhino, and the Courser attack puts him down to 1.
Yeah, Ross's hand is kind of on the table at that spot. You know what he's saying. He's saying to you, if you play something big, I'm going to Disdainful Stroke it. If you don't, I'm probably just going to downfall the Siege Rhino you haven't played in a turn. Sort of on the table there. So if you have a play that allows you to advance your board without getting hit by the Disdainful Stroke, I feel like that's the kind of play you want to take in that spot.
Yeah, and you also, as you mentioned too, because he also has the opportunity to cast Abzan Charm too. So now he's in really good territory of just two spells in one turn.
Right.
Which is where you want to be. Either way, Corey Gaudreau is going to win game number 2 here against Ross Merriam. We're going to head to a third one. And while these players do shuffle up and re-sideboard a little bit here, we will talk about the Star Stadium's buy list, as there were changes made to that right around the Season 1 Invitational. And I know that's something you dabbled in. You can tell our viewers all about it.
Yeah, the buy list has been updated. It's a much better feature now than it used to be, where you basically had to control F through the entire buy list looking for the cards you were looking to sell. Now you can just use the tool to search. You can actually set it up by condition too. So if you have let's say you have some played Tarmogoyfs that you want to sell, you can type in Tarmogoyf, you can set the condition, you can set foil, not foil, and it spits out a price. You can also set your buy list, the order that you want to sell to us ahead of time, and then just mail it to us or drop it off at the dealer booth. So instead of having to sit at the dealer table for a very long time, having the dealer count up all your bulk rares and so forth, you just print out ahead of time, drop it off, and get your money right there. So the buy list is significantly improved, both for selling to the website and to prepare your orders to sell at events. And it's much smoother than before. So you can go over to starcgames.com/buy list. You need to have an account registered with the buy list to be able to check it out, but that's just doing that anyway. It's a significant improvement over the previous buy list. So if you used it in the past, found it to be a little cumbersome or were frustrated by it, I suggest checking it out again because the update's a much better build.
StarCityGames.com/buy list for more information as we do get ready here for game number 3 between Ross Merriam and Corey Gaudreau. Solitary Reanimator, Abzan Control. You have to imagine both of those decks will probably be pretty popular this weekend.
I think so. Certainly, Abzan Control has quite the pedigree at this point.
Yeah. But there will be some aggressive decks here as well, as Mono Red and Atarka Red were both decks that did very well at the Pro Tour.
With Atarka Red being the winning list.
Correct. So you have to imagine we will see some of those, and even Blue-Black Control. It was a deck that performed quite well at the Pro Tour. And, with that and Esper Dragons and Esper Control and the various ways that you can build the Dig Through Time control decks, I imagine we'll see quite a bit of those as well. So Standard is a very, very diverse format right now, which makes it a lot of fun to build decks, play games, and to watch as well.
We've got to watch 3 large tournaments at this point. Richmond, which was basically the constructed pre-release, Syracuse, and then the Pro Tour. Now we're here in Providence. And each weekend we had different decks surface. Different things were popular, different metagame calls looked correct. So Khans Tarkir Standard from the jump point has been defined by there's all sorts of different decks going on. And that doesn't seem like it's letting up here at all. A control tilt to the Pro Tour, when in Richmond and Syracuse, those decks were largely absent.
Yep.
I mean, there were certainly the Richmond finals were between Reed and Jacob were slower decks, but they weren't Dissolve decks.
Yeah.
And Dissolve had a very good performance in the Pro Tour last weekend. So.
Absolutely it did. Ross going to mulligan his hand very quickly, it seems. See how Corey feels about his. Ross will be on the play this game, of course. No, I'm a huge fan of the Standard format. I really, really am. I'm fortunate enough to get to play in the Open Series in Portland 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. And I don't have any idea what to play. Probably just going to ask Jerry T for a deck and, move forward accordingly. But there's just so many different ways that you can build and so many different things you can play. And it's just, I think it's just really sweet.
The power level of the format, I've said this several times before, but the power level of the format is relatively flat. There's no obviously best card you need to be playing in your deck, and there's a lot of very powerful cards to choose from. So everyone kind of gets to play with the strategy they like or they think is best. No one's really pigeonholed into playing a particular deck. Control decks, mid-range decks, beatdown decks, they're all viable. All the various wedges, the cons, they have their incentives. We've seen monocolor decks, we've seen 5-color decks. You sort of get to just choose what you want to do and play it, and your deck is fine, rather than some of the metagames like last year's standard format, for example, where there was really only 2 or 3 decks for a lot of that season, and it was just, you know, do you want to be Revelating or do you want to be Thought Seizing? That was kind of what the format was about, and this format has been a complete 180 from that world.
It's a welcome change.
Yes.
Some people do enjoy the previous world. And in certain situations I do as well, but I prefer what we have right now. Both players are going to take a look at their 6. Looks like Ross is happy enough. Corey is as well, so game number 3 underway. Temple of Melody is where we'll start things. Take a look at that top card, will Merriam, and it'll stay on top as we head Gaudreau's way. Gaudreau will draw a copy of Bile Blight. He has a Temple of Silence. We'll take a look at that top card. He's going to consult his hand before making a decision with this scry. It'll stay on top, and Gaudreau will pass it back over to Merriam. Merriam with a swamp and a passing of the turn. Gaudreau has a Thought Seize. He will play it. We'll see Ross's hand. A Courser, a Whip, a Hero's Downfall, a Sidisi, and a Swamp.
It's a very odd hand because these are the kind of hands, especially on mulligans, where Courser or Crewfix is really important, but Ross can't cast it with the mana that's left over his hand. It still may be the card to take. Corey also may take the Downfall here if he's got some powerful follow-up here and can start going on the offensive. And Whip of Erebos is a big long-term concern here as well, so. Looks like even with the ability to not cast the Courser, Corey still wants to take it out of Ross's hand.
Yep, that's what he's going to do. A little scry action here for Corey off the Temple of Malady. That top card's going to stay on top. We'll head back Merriam's way. Merriam will draw. We know he's got a Swamp. He'll play a Satyr Wayfinder. That was a draw for the turn. A Courser, an Opulent Palace, a Disdainful Stroke, and a Polluted Delta. Opulent Palace seems like an easy selection, and it is. That'll enter the battlefield tapped, and we'll pass the turn back over to Gaudreau. Gaudreau will draw.
I mean, that was an excellent draw there for Ross, fixing his mana. Now he has access to blue and double green, putting some stuff in the graveyard. He's got Whip of Erebos in his hand. There's now an expendable creature in play for this DC. That was just a perfect draw for Ross.
Courser there for Gaudreau. Top card of the deck is the Temple of Malady. That'll be Corey's draw next turn. Ross has the ability this turn to just play a Swamp and a Whip of Erebos if he'd like. His draw for the turn was a Polluted Delta. Looks like he'll play that. 3 mana, Hero's Downfall. Get that off the table. Doesn't want Courser to generate any card advantage. Satyr Wayfinder will poke across for 1 and we'll head back Corey's way. He'll draw that Temple. He's got Knobs on Charm in hand. We'll see what else he can do this turn.
And in terms of who's the better Courser or Crewfix Heroes Downfall style deck, it's definitely Corey.
Yep.
When the game's just about 1-for-1 trades, Corey's deck is far better. And after that Thoughtseize, you got the sense that Ross is in some real trouble. With that Wayfinder to grease the wheels, now all the other elements of Ross's hand become viable options. Whereas before, it was just a 4/6 Dutch Toucher for 5, a Whip with nothing in the graveyard. It's so important for Ross to have something to prime the pump a little bit with his graveyard. But once he gets it going, his deck does the more powerful stuff.
See what Gaudreau wants to do here on his 4th turn of the game. He's tapping 3 mana in the main phase. Looks like he's going to go Abzan Charming. So he'll draw 2. Temple of Silence. One of the cards found. Play a copy of Llanowar Waste. Now here's a Thoughtseize. Sidisi, Whip, and Swamp are the options here for Corey. The Whip is going to bite the dust. Ross is going to very quickly sacrifice his Polluted Delta. Corey basically saying, I'm not scared of your Sidisi with this selection. Or perhaps he's saying that Whip is just too powerful.
Yeah, he may not have an answer right now for Whip of Erebos, though it does present the problem of Ross just being able to tutor for another one. It might mean that Corey has another discard spell in his hand. He's anticipating Ross will go untap and tutor, and then Corey can tag the tutor target with a discard spell and then fight through the Sidisi some other way.
See what the draw is here for Ross. Looks like it was just another polluted delta.
Also, if he leaves the whip and takes Sidisi, Ross has the ability to just whip back the Sidisi, and then Corey's kind of getting the worst of both worlds. So this play looks ugly from Corey's side of the table, but the Whip of Erebos is such a powerful long-term play that does much of the same damage that the Sidisi does this turn, that I think that I like Corey just getting the whip out of the hand.
The big question was, what was Ross going to select with his Sidisi tutor? And his weapon of choice is Treasure Cruise here. He wants to gas back up.
Yep. It's something that Corey cannot easily trade 1-for-1 with. You know, Corey, you know, if Roscoe gets a whip, maybe Corey has an answer to it. He gets a random creature. It gets swept up by end hostilities. Treasure Cruise is just something that Corey can't counter. He can't stop. It's just happening.
Yeah, I was very curious about what the card Ross was going to select there. You know, the thing that jumped to my mind immediately was a card like Farika, God of Affliction, which might be okay grinding the game down if Ross wants to maybe go that route. But he's decided to try to gas back up there with Treasure Cruise.
Well, Farika, you know, if Corey has an Erase, it's really bad. If he has an Elspeth, it's really bad. There's ways for Farika to go wrong. Treasure Cruise is just going to work.
Yep.
No two ways about it. So it's the safest line from Ross and probably the most powerful.
Gaudreau pass the turn back. Merriam going to draw a card. Looks like he gets to go to his turn with his Treasure Cruise. And it's going to be a one-man Treasure Cruise, that's for sure. So Ross will delve away some cards here. And 3 cards will be coming here in just a moment. Gonna leave Whip of Erebos in the graveyard.
That's a Tassiger consideration right there.
Absolutely. Murderous Cut among the cards found here from Merriam. Soul of Innistrad as well. Sidisi going to come into the red zone. Gaudreau going to take that hit. There's a polluted delta. That's a passing of the turn. Abzan Charm will be cast. This looks like this is going to be for 2 more cards. Gaudreau down to 5. We'll go to his turn.
Corey's life total here is surprisingly low.
Yep.
He's taking a lot of damage, I suppose, off of Thoughtseize and Abzan Charms and so forth. But
he's played 2 Thoughtseizes this game.
Yep.
One of them he had to play off a Llanowar Waste, so that's 5. 2 Abzan Charms is 9. A hit from Sidisi. All of a sudden, that's 13. Yeah. Of course, you're going to look to maybe gain some of this life back. There's Plains. That'll trigger the Courser. Top card of the deck is Hero's Downfall. There's an answer for Sidisi. Gaudreau will just pass that turn back. Merriam will untap and draw. Dragonlord Salumgar, I believe, was the draw. Step 1, however, is just attacking with the Sidisi. Bioblight's going to slow that thing down a little bit.
this is just Healing Salve.
So he'll take 1. Down to 5. It's a Torrent Elemental and passing of the turn.
And Ross keeping Dragonlord Slumgar in hand, trying to add enough pressure to bleed out the removal spells.
Utter End, the top card of the deck. We've seen Torrent Elemental be very powerful for Ross when playing this deck, and Reed Duke as well at the Season 1 Invitational.
Yeah, combos very nicely with Whip of Erebos. That's just a very sweet interaction.
Yep.
And it's just powerful in general with Delving. It's also not horrible on random boards. This card's just been fine to cast sometimes.
Absolutely. There's the attack, there's a block. Here's End Hostilities to clean everything up. So this will work out just fine here for Gaudreau. Looks like, yeah, slight misstep there, not playing the land before the Courser. Misses out on the ability to gain a life.
Mm-hmm. And Corey's life total is precariously low right now.
It matters quite a bit. Ross has a land to play. It'll be a copy of Manic Influence.
Somewhat troubling for Ross to see Utter End on top of the deck there, because I think with Hero's Downfall in Corey's hand, Ross would have liked to just jam Soul of Innistrad this turn, but now he can't do that because he doesn't want that to get hit by Utter End.
There's Temple. top card. It's going to become the bottom card. Gaudreau will just pass the turn back. Merriam will draw. Merriam will play Leonard Waste, pass the turn back. Our backup match was going to be Reed Duke versus Larry Swayze. However, Larry Swayze defeated Reed Duke. So Duke picks up his first loss on the weekend. He moves down to 2-1. A forest here for Merriam.
And Ross being very patient. As long as Corey's not going to do anything, Ross is just going to set up a spot where he can cast and activate Soul in one turn. He's got a downfall in his hand, so if Corey had something proactive of his own, Ross has an answer to it. And as long as Corey's putting no pressure on Ross to do anything, Ross is just responding in kind.
Yeah, no reason to move. Certainly hasn't been given a reason. And because Ross knows about the other end that's over there, if he's going to play anything, it wants to be something that he can play and get value from, like a card like Tasker, for example.
Which I believe was his draw step this turn. And so I think you're going to see Tasker come into play, likely exiling the Tauren Elemental. Get that back on the cheap. Start kind of bleeding out Corey's removal spells. And then deploy the heavy hitters.
There is Tasker. Ross going to remove his Torrent Elemental and his Treasure Cruise for Delve. In regards to Torrent Elemental, certainly a Delve cost he's willing to pay.
Yeah.
Other end is going to go after that. And it looks like we're going to get an activation. Ross will have to take one from the Mana Confluence. But he will do just that.
And the other end is exactly what Ross wants to see here, because that's one less answer for the Soul of Innistrad in his hand.
Tasker turned over a Satyr Wayfinder and a Courser, so Satyr Wayfinder added back to Merriam's hand. Here's a Courser of Crewfix. Finally some action there for Gaudreau. So he will cast that. Take a look at that top card. It's Tasker of his own. There's a Windswept Heath. In case Gaudreau wants to shuffle that Tasker away, he'll gain a life for playing it. Pass the turn back over to Merriam. Merriam will draw a card. He's worked that other end out of Corey's hand. Perhaps now we see the Soul of Innistrad. Looks like he will start with the Satyr Wayfinder. That's not been Palace, a disdainful stroke of Forest and a Sidisi. Forest will go to the grip very quickly there for Ross. He'll play that Forest as his land for the turn. Tap some manas. Let's see what this is. There's the Soul. Does have Dragonlord Slumgar in hand as well as a 6-mana option.
So Ross does not mind if this gets killed, and if it survives, that's great too. Soul of Innistrad in the graveyard still does a lot of work, and Dragonlord Slumgar is probably the card that Ross wants to ultimately set up here.
It's probably the big payoff.
Yeah.
Hero's Downfall took care of the Soul. Tasker the draw here for Gaudreau. Take a look at the top card. It's a Windswept Heath. Corey with a lot of cards in his graveyard, so he can delve away quite a few.
Looks like Ross may be pausing him inside the draw step here with a Murderous Cut in hand.
Looks like he's considering it. Gonna sacrifice Blue to Delta. Ah, smart. Not searching for a land because he knows how many lands he has in his deck, but sacrificing Blue to Delta is a card to delve away.
Yep.
And he wants to be able to control his graveyard, of course, for a card like Soul of Innistrad or for a card like Tassiger. So actually a pretty smart play there.
There is a cost here in the sense that if anyone's Urborg shows up, then he's down to mana. But at this point, Ross probably does not worry about one individual land very much.
Yeah, that was in the draw step, and he's also probably pretty pleased if Corey is drawing a Windswept Heath next turn.
Yes.
Or if he has to sacrifice the Windswept Heath that is in play, which means that he's not able to do that with a Courser and control his draw step and things of that nature. So the play there makes sense by Merriam. And there's a Plains. I think Gaudreau trying to figure out if I do things this way, This is going to sacrifice his Windswept Teeth. How many times can I activate Tasker in one turn? Get a basic forest off that Windswept Teeth.
So a slight misstep there by Corey. If he was going to go ahead and sacrifice the Windswept Teeth anyway, probably should have been while the Courser was still in play.
Sure. Get some information. Also get the light.
Yeah, the light
Stay
is the
net
big
neutral, too.
Yeah.
These small life points add up.
Well, I don't know. Maybe at that point, Corey feels like a life point is worth concealing his draw. I'm not so sure.
There's Tasker. Still duff away a couple of cards here.
Leave yourself enough mana available to activate Tasker twice.
Accurate. However, taking a look at his green mana count, he used the basic forest to tap to actually cast Tasker. And now, if he wants to activate Tasker twice, he does have 8 mana, but he'll have to pay 1 life to actually be able to cast it. Again, these small incremental hits, and maybe these mistaps or poor activations of the fetch lands might come back to hurt Gaudreau in this situation. Here's 6 mana. Now it's time for the Dragonlord Slumguard. Perhaps it is?
Yeah. With Corey out, this is kind of the trap that Ross was setting up the whole way.
And Ross gets to control what he gives back with the Tasker, of course,
Yeah.
which is quite helpful. A lot of players in their articles this week about testing for the Pro Tour said that they recognize that the Dragon Lords were all quite powerful. Atarka certainly being one, Salumgar as well. We can't forget about Dragonlord Ojutide too. Of course, our Crewfix will be given back. And so now Corey will have to take that 1 to activate Tasker again, and Hostilities and Temple of Silence are the cards that are turned over. Of course, our Crewfix number 2 given back. Tasker now belongs to Ross Merriam. There's an attack for 1, which puts Gaudreau down to 3, which is rather convenient for the power of Dragonlord Slumgar.
So yeah, this is now removal spell or bust. And even if he finds a removal spell, keep in mind, Ross still has Torn Elemental in exile plus some other stuff going on here.
Ross can keep playing. Courser. Top card, Hero's Downfall. There's Hero's Downfall. Take care of the Dragonlord Slumgar. Timely top deck there
that
for
was
Corey.
the draw step.
Yep.
That's what it needed to be.
Hero's Downfall will take care of Tasker.
Yeah, Ross doing this before. It goes back to Corey there, so Corey can activate the Tasker.
But again, Corey needs to really tighten up the way that he's playing the spells right now, because this is another point that he had to take to cast that particular spell, where he's got plenty of green and black mana out there, but you see a Temple of Silence go untapped, and he casts a Hero's Downfall and 2 Coursers that turn.
And normally this is a matchup where life total doesn't matter very much, but these little chip shots matter a lot for Ross's ability to maybe punk him out with Tauron Elemental. Corey's still got Obzon Charms and Thoughtseize in his deck he may want to cast.
Read the Bones too.
Read the Bones, yes.
Ross going to rearrange some things. Looks like he's got so many different options here. You mentioned Tauron Elemental, that's 1. 2, of course, is Soul of Innistrad. That's been in his graveyard for a little while. Here's a Murderous Cut. That'll take care of a Courser. Another copy of Murderous Cut. That'll take care of another Courser. Ross wants to make sure that Corey's only seeing 1 card per turn.
And now Ross can cast the Tauron Elemental with Corey at 1, and now the Hero's Downfall on the top of Corey's deck does not help.
Yeah, and that is going to do it. Ross Merriam is going to win this match here over Corey Gaudreau. 2-1. Salted Reanimator will take care of Obzon Control. A very well-played game match there by Ross.
Exactly, and you can see that how important it is for him to have something to get the graveyard going. That Wayfinder that he drew on turn 3, to me, was the whole game. It was looking like his hand was just going to be this 1-for-1 trade fest with Heroes Downfalls, a Whip of Erebos with nothing going on, it's a DC with nothing going on. That's the kind of game plan that Corey can easily beat. But once roster the Wayfinder, now all of a sudden Whip of Erebos matters, now all of a sudden Sidisi mattered, and Sidisi into Treasure Cruise is really what gave Ross the gas to punch through Corey's answers.
Well, we do bring it back to the booth.